Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Businessworld, for inviting us on this panel. I think the topic for discussion today is very relevant. What role does a CEO see that the HR plays in a growth strategy? And I just came from a meeting with a media entertainment company just now, a little while back, and they were talking about how 4G and this entire way in which media is going to be consumed is going to change the way the distribution network, the entire DTH, everything is going to change. And when one industry gets impacted, so when one innovation takes place or one disruption takes place, it does not impact one industry, but it impacts multiple industries. If you look at your iPhone, it's not just impacted the telecom industry, it's impacted everything, the cameras, the phones, the watches, everything has been impacted. So I think we are living in an age of very transformational change. And the other day somebody was asking me in my own organization, when is it that we're going stable? When is it that there is going to be no change? I said, I don't see that for a few years at least, because every day that you get up in the morning, the only thing that you see around you is change, and it is not minor change. It is not tweaks that are happening, but it's very major change. And I think when I look around and look at very, very successful companies, and we find that those companies that have actually taken HR to the top table and have taken them to sit on the main executive table where all decisions are made, where the HR head, or whatever name you may call that individual by, is part of strategy, is part of the growth, and is part of everything that happens. Because we all think that value is created by business, but the day we realize that value is created by people, I think our entire attitude will change. Secondly, accountants, they can only measure what they see. And if you look at people, the attrition that happens when people leave, nobody counts it. There are various measures which are put out, it is so many times this, but I can tell you that at the day one can find out how you can actually cost out what it costs for attrition of people who leave the organization, and that comes into your P&L, and that comes as a number there on your P&L, I think people will change the attitude and say that this is something that needs to be looked at. So I think the point that we need to realize is that from a company perspective or from a CEO's perspective, it's important to treat HR as a business partner, as somebody who is front office, somebody who's going to be out there helping me with my strategy, helping me recruit the right people, helping me develop the talent. Because a lot of companies have a department called, I don't know how many here also will put up their hands, and if I see how many of you have L&D, I'm sure most of all hands will go up. We all have L&D. But I would just like to know that, is your organization truly a learning organization, or do you just do some trainings and you call it learning? Number one. Number two, where is the D part of that? Do you do any development work? Do you do anywhere where you develop your talent? Where's your leadership talent being developed? How is leadership talent getting developed in organizations? It's a big challenge. And the day we wake up to some of these realities, because only the day you wake up, and I can tell you from our own organization, the day we realize we have what we call lead partners on accounts. And the lead partner retires, he can't be there forever. He has a great relationship with the client, and he walks out, and with him walks out the client also. Because there is no second rung which has been developed to actually take on that relationship at that level. And I think that you can put to any kind of this thing. So I think what people should do is go back and relook at their leadership pipeline. Do I have a succession for every critical position in my company? And I think that's where HR plays a very, very important role in ensuring that leadership pipeline is built from young. It's built into having these people out there. So that is very important. Secondly, today with predictive analytics, with a lot of technology thrown in, how much of that do we use actually in the way we look at from a people point of view? I think that's another important area that we should look at. And if once you redefine, the role, and who will do this job? Who will do this job of getting HR onto the top table? It is the CEO. They need to, what happens is, generally when you talk around, you go to a CEO and ask him, how's your HR doing? I don't get any time with them because they're all wasting their time on internal processes, looking at recruiting people, looking at getting this performance management done, etc. So I think the point is, it is up to the CEO to elevate this to the top level. If CFOs, if you look around you and you see the number of CFOs who have gone on to become CEOs, it is becoming like a natural transition today. A CFO becoming the head of the organization. At the time when marketing was right on top of there, you found the marketing professionals becoming the CEOs of organizations. At the time when manufacturing was big, we have come back to Made in India, so hopefully it'll come back. You had the manufacturing guy becoming CEO. But you never heard of a HR guy going and becoming. There are very few cases, you can count them, maybe 100, 200 of them who have become CEOs. But the point is, so you need to ask yourself, as an HR professional, am I ready to take the top job? And if I'm ready to take the top job, when I begin my career, how do I actually aspire to go there? What do I do out-of-box learning? What is the kind of roles that I will play to actually go to that role? In my view, because the biggest this thing that a CEO deals with when he is there at the top is people. So then you should wonder, the HR person is the right guy because he's all the time dealing with people issues, whether he's dealing with clients, whether he's dealing with suppliers, whether he's dealing with anything. So he's all there, or with his own staff, or with customers. It's always dealing with people. And I think the people skills are most important. So it's a natural, why should HR people not become the number one position? I think this is some point that I want to reflect. I've got my fellow panelists out here, and I will request each of them to speak for 5 minutes each.
In today's context, I think in the past, if you looked at it, a CEO was the chief executive officer. In 2015 and beyond, simply put, a CEO has to be the chief employee officer. Without the employees, without the team, there is no business, and you're going nowhere. I know there's a lot of talk on technology, and we do tend to get overridden by it, and that's a way of life. It's a given in today's context. But the human factor, the people factor, who owns the people's agenda, it has to be right at the board level with the CEO. Now, where is this coming from? In the previous discussion, there was a mention that we do everything for our customers. And I come from a customer service organization. We touch globally about 35% of the world's population every year with our customer interactions. Now, if we expect our employees to do the best for those customers, why is it so hard for us as a CEO to set the same benchmarks for our internal customers? In every touch point, in every experiential form. It's not hard. Yeah, it's different. And that's where I think the change of the agenda is moving towards. It is a natural progression. Some have got there a little earlier, or some are ahead in that, and some are getting there. And those who are not getting there are probably not going to be there. So it's as simple as that. Looking at the scenario of today, every business is looking at the customer with a microscope and wanting to do all the somersaults and all the hoops for them in the simplest way, or take all the challenges to meet them, whether it is via technology, via the physical touch points, physical presence. So similarly in that fashion, each of those guys are customers in their own rights, and when they are experiencing the big transformation that's actually taken place with the customer in the marketplace is, for the first time, the social media or the hyperactive social media, and more so in India, it has a contextual reference because India's been an entitled society. The guy at the bottom never mattered. And that's a reality. We can't wish ourselves away from it. While at the top, we've always wanted to be good, but did that guy at the bottom ever have a voice? Did he ever got listened to? So, in the customer experience, when the world is moving towards customer experience, as Gartner put it, 89% of marketeers will be competing on customer experience in 2015. What does that mean? It's redefined the marketeer's job. Till yesterday, the marketeer was mainly a tell channel. He was telling via advertising, broadcast medium, communication, whatever format, but it was a tell-heavy channel. Now today, he has to become, or she has to become, a listen-heavy channel. And that's a mega shift. So if the HR fraternity has to align to customer experience at the end, the HR guy has been given that mandate, if I can call it that. And there's no rocket science to it. We live it. We are customers in our own rights for our own services in every form or shape that we are using throughout the day. So that's one of the benchmarks that the HR will have to apply, and it begins with the CEO. There is no two ways about it. It cannot be CEO cannot be outsourcing that to the HR. And though I'm part of the outsourcing business, I should not be really propagating that in that fashion. We love the outsourcing. But the fact is, that experience to that employee, because that employee is beginning to experience that as a customer, and he's going to expect that same. And he's going to be raising his voice as he's got visible via social media and he has a voice. So if the companies are listening to their customers over social media, be sure about it. All your employees will be tweeting about anybody and everything that's happening in the workplace. I don't know how many of you have ever followed the hashtag, had a bad day at work. And don't be surprised to find some of your employees' names in there. They may not be mentioning the company name, but don't be surprised about it. So all that is going to happen. It is already engulfing, and that's going to come in a very big way. So unless we kind of get our arms around and set the same benchmarks, it is difficult in the sense that from the top, you've got to walk the talk. And we've got to develop a very heavy listening channel, which was earlier not present, and more so in India, where the last guy or people down the line were only earlier customarily given orders or given instructions or directives or perceived options that, oh, they're like this. So that feedback mechanism that we take from our customers has to come into this space and action oriented to that. It's simple. Employees are only asking for trust. They're only asking for transparency. 90% of the issues, we practice that. We walked that talk. We experienced some of that. And it solved a lot of our problems. I mean, we've got a practice spending 10% of time on any subject with employees open in our company. And it's helped us solve 90% of our problems that were perceived in a domain like the BPO domain, which, oh, these youngsters are always causing trouble, or they're less trustworthy, or they just a threat, and the whole game reverses. So the idea is, I mean, just to conclude, I mean, this is a double-edged sword. You can actually leverage it to the hilt, or you can be a victim of it very quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to?
I come from the outsourcing business, and I'm going to paraphrase something Mr. Narayan Murthy said, is that our assets go home every night, and we wonder whether they will come back next morning. So that is the criticality of people in any service business and in a business like ours. So I think the criticality is that one of the things that we always try to do, and HR has the critical and crucial role, is that can we be an employer of choice? Because if we are not an employer of choice, how do we get the right folks to join us? So therefore, it's very important that we want to be a great place to work. If we are a great place to work, and if we are an employer of choice, we will get that right intellectual capital, and they will come back to work every day, the next day, number one. And number two, of course, I think Sanjay spoke about the criticality in today's world of customer experience. If you have the right set of employees, you will get a differentiated customer experience. I was reading a case study from Singapore Airlines, and one of the reasons they emphasize so much on customer experience is because, as they say, the aircraft is the same. It's either a Boeing or an Airbus. Even the model is the same. It's a 787 or an A380. But why is an airline A, or Singapore, or Etihad better than the others is because of customer experience. That is the criticality that HR plays. That's one. The other thing that Richard talked about is HR and strategy. Now, HR is not just going to be involved in strategy. The way I feel it is HR actually defines and builds strategy. Take the example of Aegis. 10, 15 years back, we were a CRM company. Today, we have morphed into a full-service outsourcing company doing back office, shared services, social media, mobile applications, analytics. This transformation, the whole transformation grid, HR has been intimately involved with this top management to find out what is the intellectual horsepower we had, what do we need, what kind of people do we need to hire, and how do we build the organization to do this transformation. Without that, we cannot transform ourselves or cannot evolve, and particularly in today's changing world. The other key points, and Richard raised some of them, and they may not sound that important in the strategic sense. He talked about attrition. In our kind of business, attrition makes a huge difference to the bottom line and to the customer experience. Attrition in BPOs can run from 60%, 70%, 30%. If you can reduce the attrition by even 2 percentage points, you've made a huge difference to the bottom line as well as to customer experience. And the other critical role of HR in any industry, whether it's service or otherwise, is I would call the 3 C's: communication, culture, and community. Communication is, I just said that HR is critical to strategy. Once we have built the strategy, is the organization aligned to the strategy? The job of HR, and again critical, is to cascade the strategy from a senior level to the managers and below to ensure alignment, to reinforce that message, and also to build in a series of rewards to ensure that that strategy is followed. That's on the communication part. Culture. Particularly in service industries or in any industry, HR is critical in building and maintaining that culture. So if Aegis has to have a particular culture where customer experience is the key differentiator or new knowledge management is important, HR builds that culture. And that is not just true of service industries. I mean, I was reading a book about Jack Welch and Six Sigma, and he said without HR support, they could not have built the culture of Six Sigma in 3M. So HR builds culture. And finally, I say community, and that's very important in an organization like ours, which have Gen Y, people in the age of 20 to 25, where what we are doing is trying to build, through social media, communities of people who have an interest beyond a transaction that I come to office and I do, a community of shared values. And that we find makes a huge difference to employee engagement, makes a huge difference to work culture. And therefore, I see the role of HR in any company, but particularly in service companies, particularly in a company like us, is both strategic and critical as we go towards transformation changes in the next few years. Thank you.
Thank you. Ramesh.
Good evening. Being the third speaker, not much left to say, but but I think the next few years, if you really look at, Richard, you said, can HR become the CEO? And I think the competition is going to be between HR and IT. IT is going to try hard to say that we need no people. We can do everything through technology. And HR will have to continue to say that people are very important. And this is going to be the reality. But if you kind of really look at it, HR has a very, very important role to play going forward. They will have to ensure that the senior management stops interfering but gets involved. And if you look at the last maybe 10, 15, 20 years, you have people with a lot of experience in the company. In the name of involvement, they all interfere. And that's one of the biggest challenge for HR, believe in me. And as a CEO, if you ask me, I would expect HR to bring in a culture of people getting involved and not interfering. That's something I would very seriously want to look at. The other thing would be, HR has to play a very significant role in ensuring that everyone in the organization is respected for the knowledge they have and not for the authority they possess. This is another cultural shift we will have to start seeing, because you're getting all youngsters coming into the company. I mean, my son doesn't care for me if I say that, I've gone through this in life. He says, it's your mistake, you have given me everything already. And this is the kind of employee you're going to have future. Is he going to respect you because you have a title called so-and-so? I don't think so. So HR will have to play this very significant role of ensuring that people are respected in the organization for the knowledge they possess and not the authority they possess. I think the next one I would think HR will have to do, I would expect, if I go and negotiate, today there is no product differentiation in the market. Can anyone sell a product less quality than anybody else? Can there be a price differentiation? I don't think so. So ultimately, HR will have to become a strategic differentiator. If HR doesn't become a strategic differentiator, there will not be a role. There will not be a role. I mean, if all of us become self-disciplined, you don't need an HR. So I think it's extremely important that HR will have to become a strategic tool. So if I go and negotiate with somebody else, I should be able to say that because of this reason of people, I'm different from everyone else. So that's going to be the next role that they will have to play very, very strongly. I think if they work around all of this, then and then only there will be a significant role left. They should know the business. I don't think they can today handle only difficult situations. Oh, if this year increments are less, let's put HR in front and let them explain to everybody why it's only 7% this year. That can't be HR anymore. They can't be the punching bag. It won't work. And finally, I would very strongly think their role will have to be that employees remain employable at any point of time. If they are not going to remain employable, we are going to carry baggage. You will have to, HR will have to make sure they are employable. L&D you referred to. The D part is the employability. You will have to develop employees at all point of time. They have to be relevant to the marketplace. There's no point in saying 10 years back we did it, it failed, so let's not do it now. The market has changed. So that's something they will have to play as a very significant role. They will have to ensure people are employable. And then lastly, I would think they will have to make sure that whenever there is an impact of cost, don't look at reduction of cost, but look at improving productivity. I think that's going to be HR role. You can't anymore say, oh, I've got so many people, let me cut off 50% of them because I have to bring down cost. No. You say, if I've got so many people, can they produce double? I think that's the role HR will have to play. If these 4 or 5 things HR does for me, I think I will have much more peaceful life as a CEO. So that's my expectation, I would think, as a CEO, I would think. And it's evolved over a period of time. And I think more than ever before, this has become extremely, extremely important because you're competing on everything being equal. And therefore, people are going to make all the difference. And therefore, HR will make all the difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramesh.